Hey there. If you've been told your blood pressure is creeping up, or your cholesterol numbers aren't where they should be, or maybe you just feel more tired walking up a flight of stairs than you used to, I need you to stay with me for the next few minutes. Because what I'm about to share could genuinely change how your heart handles the years ahead. Here's what worries me about what I see online. There are hundreds of videos making wild claims. Reverse heart disease in 3 days, or one drink that cleans your arteries overnight. That is not what this video is. I do the research so you don't have to. What I'm going to share with you today is grounded in real studies published by institutions like the American Heart Association and the National Institutes of Health. No miracle cures, no exaggerations, just the truth. Now, here's where things get interesting. We're going to go through 10 foods, some of them will surprise you, that the research shows can actively support your heart. And I'm also going to tell you about 2 foods that most people think are healthy, but might actually be working against your heart. Stay with me, because by the end of this video, you'll know exactly what belongs on your plate and what should stay off it. I'm Ellis, and every 36 seconds, someone in America dies from heart disease. But here's what most people don't realize. The research shows that up to 80% of heart disease is preventable through the choices we make every day, starting with what we put on our plates. Today I'm sharing 10 foods backed by real research that support your heart after 60, and 2 that might be quietly working against it. I do the research so you don't have to. Before we get into the foods, let me explain why what you eat matters more after 60 than it did at 40. And here's where things get interesting, because it's not just about cholesterol. After 60, your blood vessels naturally become less flexible. The inner lining, what researchers call the endothelium, doesn't repair itself as quickly as it used to. At the same time, inflammation in the body tends to increase gradually with age. Not the kind of inflammation you can feel, like a swollen ankle. The silent kind. The kind that, over years, slowly damages the walls of your arteries. Think of it like a garden hose that's been out in the sun for 20 years. It still works. Water still flows through it. But the walls aren't as supple. Little cracks form. And if the pressure spikes, it's more likely to fail than a brand new hose. Your blood vessels after 60 are like that hose. And the foods I'm about to share with you, they're not magic. They won't undo 40 years of bacon and butter. But what the research shows is that they can help slow down the damage, reduce inflammation, and in some cases help your blood vessels function better than they have in years. Now, before we count down from 10, I want to ask you something. What's the one food you already eat because you believe it's good for your heart? Type it in the comments below. You might be right, or you might be surprised by what the research actually says. Let's find out together. Number 10, and we're starting here for a reason, oats. Now I know you might be thinking, Ellis, oats? That's your big reveal? But stay with me, because there's something about oats that most people completely overlook. Oats contain a specific type of soluble fiber called beta-glucan. And beta-glucan does something remarkable in your body. Picture this. You eat a bowl of oatmeal. That beta-glucan forms a gel-like substance in your digestive tract. And as it moves through, it acts almost like a sponge, binding to cholesterol particles, specifically LDL, the kind we don't want, and helping your body eliminate them instead of absorbing them. A meta-analysis published in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition looked at over 60 studies and found that regular oat consumption reduced total cholesterol by an average of 5% and LDL cholesterol by 7%. That's not from a pill. That's from a food that costs pennies per serving. But here's the mistake people make. Those instant oatmeal packets with apple cinnamon flavor, they're loaded with added sugar, sometimes 12 to 15 grams per packet. and added sugar triggers inflammation, which is exactly what you're trying to reduce. Steel cut oats, rolled oats, cooked with a pinch of cinnamon. That's the way to get the heart benefit without the sugar. I had a conversation with a gentleman named Robert, 72, a retired postal worker. He came to me confused because he'd been eating oatmeal every morning for years, but his cholesterol wasn't budging. Turned out he was eating the flavored packets. When he switched to plain steel-cut oats with a handful of walnuts, which we'll talk about in a few minutes, his LDL dropped 14 points in 4 months. Same habit, better version. Number 9, walnuts. And here's where things get interesting, because walnuts do something that most other nuts don't. Walnuts are the only nut that's significantly high in alpha-linolenic acid. That's a plant-based omega-3 fatty acid. Now, you've probably heard about omega-3s from fish oil, but the plant version works differently, and the research on walnuts and heart health is genuinely compelling. A landmark study called the Walnuts and Healthy Aging Trial, published in the journal Circulation, followed over 700 older adults for 2 years. Those who ate about a handful of walnuts daily, roughly 30 to 60 grams, showed significant reductions in LDL cholesterol and, critically, reduced levels of a marker called lipoprotein EA. That's a particularly dangerous type of cholesterol particle that most standard cholesterol tests don't even measure. Now, walnuts are calorie dense, and I'm not going to pretend they're not. A quarter cup has about 190 calories. But the research suggests that the body doesn't absorb all of those calories from whole nuts the same way it does from processed foods. And the satiety, the feeling of fullness, tends to reduce snacking later in the day. The practical takeaway here is simple. A small handful of walnuts, not candied, not salted, raw or dry roasted. Toss them on your oatmeal, add them to a salad, or just eat them on their own. Small habit. Repeat it every day. That's the pattern. Number 8 is salmon, and more broadly, fatty fish like mackerel, sardines, and herring. These fish are rich in the long-chain omega-3 fatty acids EPA and DHA. Now, let me be clear about something. You don't need to eat salmon every day. You don't need a specialty fish market. Canned sardines, canned mackerel, frozen salmon, they all deliver the same omega-3s. The research doesn't care whether your fish came from a fancy fishmonger or a can. What does the research say? The American Heart Association's own guidelines, based on decades of studies, recommend 2 servings of fatty fish per week. That's it. 2 servings. A study in the Journal of the American Medical Association found that people who ate 2 servings of fatty fish weekly had a 36% lower risk of death from heart disease compared to those who ate little or no fish. 36%. That's not a rounding error. That's the kind of number that makes researchers sit up and pay attention. And if you don't eat fish at all, maybe you're vegetarian. Maybe you just don't like the taste. There are plant sources of omega-3s. Flaxseed, chia seeds, and the walnuts we just talked about. The conversion from plant omega-3s to the active forms isn't as efficient, but it still matters. Something is better than nothing. Number 7 brings us to leafy greens: spinach, kale, Swiss chard, collard greens. And there's a specific reason these matter for your heart that most people completely miss. Leafy greens are rich in nitrates, dietary nitrates, not the preservatives in processed meats. And here's what dietary nitrates do inside your body. They get converted into nitric oxide, a molecule that signals your blood vessels to relax and widen. When your blood vessels widen, your blood pressure naturally drops. It's not a drug effect. It's your own body responding to the food you just ate. A study published in the journal Hypertension found that older adults who consume nitrate-rich vegetables daily saw meaningful reductions in blood pressure. reductions comparable in some cases to what you might see from a low-dose medication. Now, I'm not telling you to stop your blood pressure medicine and eat spinach. That's not how this works. But as part of a comprehensive approach, this matters. And if you take blood thinners like warfarin, talk to your doctor before dramatically increasing leafy greens, especially kale. The vitamin K content can interact with those medications. This is why I always say, bring what you learn here to your next appointment. Ask the questions. Your doctor should know what you're eating. Number 6, blueberries. And this one surprised people because blueberries sound like a superfood you hear about everywhere. But the heart-specific research is genuinely remarkable. Blueberries are packed with anthocyanins, the same compounds that give them that deep blue-purple color. Anthocyanins are powerful antioxidants, and a study called the Blueberry Study, published in the Journal of the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics, followed postmenopausal women with early signs of high blood pressure. After 8 weeks of daily blueberry consumption, their blood pressure dropped by an average of 5% systolic and 6% diastolic. Their arterial stiffness, remember that garden hose, improved measurably. Now here's the practical side. Fresh blueberries are great, but they're expensive and seasonal. Frozen blueberries are nutritionally equivalent, sometimes even better, because they're frozen at peak ripeness when nutrient levels are highest. A half cup a day. Toss them in oatmeal. Add them to plain yogurt. Eat them straight from the bowl. The goal isn't perfection. It's creating patterns your body can repeat. Halfway through at number 5, avocado. And before you worry about the fat content, let me show you why this particular fat is exactly what your heart wants. Avocados are rich in monounsaturated fat, the same kind found in olive oil, but they also bring something extra. They're one of the best dietary sources of potassium. One medium avocado contains about 975 milligrams of potassium. That's more than a banana. And potassium directly counterbalances sodium in your body, helping your blood vessels relax and your blood pressure come down. A study published in the Journal of the American Heart Association followed over 30,000 people for decades and found that those who regularly ate avocados had a 16% lower risk of cardiovascular disease and a 21% lower risk of coronary heart disease compared to those who rarely ate them. Now, avocado is calorie dense, about 240 calories for a medium one. So we're talking about a quarter to a half an avocado, not a whole one unless it fits your overall day. Replace the butter on your toast with avocado. Replace the mayonnaise in your sandwich. Small swaps, not massive additions. Number 4 is extra virgin olive oil. And this one has something close to the strongest research track record of any food on this list. The landmark pre-dimed study, published in the New England Journal of Medicine, followed over 7,000 older adults at high cardiovascular risk for nearly 5 years. Those who consumed a Mediterranean diet supplemented with extra virgin olive oil had a 30% lower risk of major cardiovascular events, heart attack, stroke, death from heart disease, compared to those on a low-fat diet, 30% lower, from adding olive oil, nuts, fish, vegetables, and reducing processed foods. Not from a prescription, from what they ate. Here's the key. It has to be extra virgin. Regular olive oil loses many of the polyphenols, the antioxidant compounds, during processing. Extra virgin means it was mechanically pressed, no heat, no chemicals. You'll see it's greener. It has a peppery finish at the back of your throat. That's the polyphenols. That's what you're paying for. 1 to 2 tablespoons a day, drizzled over vegetables as a salad dressing or just a teaspoon taken directly. Don't cook it at high heat. That degrades the beneficial compounds. Use it raw or at low temperature. Number 3, garlic. And I told you things would get interesting. Garlic isn't just for flavor. The research on garlic and cardiovascular health goes back decades and it's surprisingly consistent. The active compound, allicin, is produced when you crush or chop raw garlic. Allicin has been shown in multiple controlled trials to reduce blood pressure, lower LDL cholesterol modestly, and act as a mild antiplatelet agent, meaning it helps prevent blood from clumping together and forming dangerous clots. A meta-analysis published in the Journal of Nutrition reviewed 39 randomized controlled trials and found that garlic supplementation produced statistically significant reductions in both systolic and diastolic blood pressure. The effect was modest, 4 to 8 points systolic, but sustained over time. And here's the preparation detail that changes everything. After you crush or chop garlic, let it sit for 10 minutes before you cook it. If you throw it directly into a hot pan, the enzyme that produces allicin is destroyed by the heat before it can do its work. 10 minutes at room temperature, and then cook it. That simple wait time dramatically increases the beneficial compounds that survive. If you're on blood thinners, have that conversation with your doctor. Garlic has mild blood thinning properties, and the combination matters. I know. You didn't expect chocolate on this list, but stay with me because number 2 is dark chocolate, specifically 70% cacao or higher. And yes, the research supports it. Dark chocolate is rich in flavonols, plant compounds that improve endothelial function, the ability of your blood vessels to dilate properly. A study in the journal Heart found that people who ate small amounts of dark chocolate regularly had a significantly lower risk of cardiovascular events compared to those who ate none. Another study, published in the British Medical Journal, looked at over 20,000 people and found that those who consumed the most chocolate, specifically dark chocolate, had a 37% lower risk of cardiovascular disease and a 29% lower risk of stroke compared to those who ate the least. Now here's the part that matters. Milk chocolate doesn't count. White chocolate doesn't count. They're mostly sugar and milk fat. The heart benefits come from the cacao content. The darker, the better. We're talking about one small square a day, not a whole bar. Roughly 7 to 10 grams. Enough to get the flavonols without a meaningful amount of sugar. And don't let healthy chocolate become an excuse to eat candy every night. The small square. That's it. But what a wonderful thing that something genuinely beneficial for your heart can also be something you look forward to. And number 1, the single food that the research keeps returning to again and again is green tea. Not because it's trendy, not because it's exotic, because the evidence is just that consistent. Green tea is extraordinarily rich in a specific class of antioxidants called catechins. The most powerful of these, EGCG, epigallocatechin galate, has been studied extensively for its effects on cardiovascular health. A massive study in Japan followed over 40,000 adults for 11 years. Those who drank 5 or more cups of green tea daily had a 26% lower risk of death from cardiovascular disease compared to those who drank less than 1 cup. Now, 5 cups is a lot, and I'm not telling you to force down 5 cups of green tea every day. Even 1 to 2 cups shows benefit compared to none. The catechins in green tea help protect LDL cholesterol from oxidation. That's the process that makes LDL particularly dangerous. They also improve endothelial function and modestly lower blood pressure. One detail, don't add milk. There's evidence that milk proteins can bind to the catechins and reduce their absorption. If you need to sweeten it, a tiny amount of honey, but ideally, learn to enjoy it plain. A cup in the morning, maybe 1 in the afternoon. A small ritual that your heart thanks you for. Before I close, I promise you 2 foods that most people think are heart healthy, but might actually be working against you. Let me give you those now. The first one surprises almost everyone, fruit juice. Even 100% juice with no added sugar. Here's the problem. When you eat a whole orange, you get fiber. That fiber slows down how quickly the sugar enters your bloodstream. But when you juice 4 oranges into a glass, all that fiber is gone. What's left is a concentrated hit of sugar. Natural sugar, yes. But your liver processes it the same way it processes added sugar. And over time, that sugar load increases triglycerides, promotes inflammation, and adds stress to your cardiovascular system. The American Journal of Clinical Nutrition published a review showing that whole fruit consumption is associated with lower cardiovascular risk. But fruit juice showed the opposite. Eat the orange, skip the juice. The second food is something many of you might be eating right now thinking it's healthy: low-fat flavored yogurt. Manufacturers remove the fat, which was never the enemy, and replace it with sugar, often 15 to 25 grams per cup. That's more sugar than a glazed donut. The sugar triggers insulin spikes, promotes inflammation, and adds to the very heart stress you're trying to reduce. Full-fat plain yogurt, Greek yogurt, with your own fresh berries, that's the heart-healthy version. The fat slows digestion. The protein keeps you full. The berries give you antioxidants. No sugar bomb needed. Here's what I want you to take away from all of this. And it's not a shopping list. It's a pattern. Healthy aging isn't one huge decision. It's hundreds of tiny ones, repeated every day. A handful of walnuts instead of chips. A square of dark chocolate instead of a cookie. A cup of green tea instead of a soda. None of these choices feels dramatic in the moment. But over weeks and months and years, they're the difference between a heart that's under constant stress and a heart that's being supported day by day, meal by meal. You don't need to overhaul your entire kitchen tonight. Start with one swap. Maybe tomorrow morning it's steel-cut oats instead of the instant packet. Next week, it's adding 1 serving of leafy greens. The week after, swapping your cooking oil for extra virgin olive oil. The goal isn't perfection. It's creating patterns your body can repeat. If this information was helpful to you, please hit that like button. It genuinely helps more people find this content. And subscribe if you'd like more research-backed health information for life after 60. Let me know in the comments. Which of these foods do you already eat, and which one surprised you most? I read the comments, and I'd love to hear from you. I do the research, so you don't have to. I'm Ellis. See you in the next one.